From the Ghost Tactical Production Studio, welcome to Tactical Tuesday, streaming live on YouTube and simulcasting as always on GunChannels.com. To check out our entire lineup of videos, podcasts, and live shows, please visit our website, www.ghosttacticalproductions.com. What is going on, my Ghost Squad? Welcome to Tactical Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, 2019. We are live as always on YouTube and simulcasting as always over on GunChannels.com. And once again, if you're not familiar with GunChannels.com, then we ask you to crawl out from under the rock in which you live. Over on the YouTube chat, there is the link over to Gun Channels. Come check us out. It's a great pro-gun, pro-2A community started about 6 years ago by G-Webs, and it's a great place to come and be around like-minded people. If you're new to firearms, it's a wonderful place to ask questions. There's a lobby chat going on pretty much 24/7, 365. If you're interested in certain parts of the gun community, there's always people around that can kind of push you in that direction and all of that. So come check us out over in Gun Channels. We are very friendly and the water is warm. So come on over. And speaking of Gun Channels, let's say hey to the lovely chat that's going on over there. You got G-Webs over there, Dead Horse, Ohio 45 ACP, Pete, David Bowling, DTP, and Gizzard Gary. Over on the YouTube side, if you're new to the channel, new to the chat, welcome. If you don't say anything in the chat, we don't know you're out there. So please, if you're out there, say hello, especially if you're new. Tell us where you are and all of that jazz. But let's say hello to people out there and see what everybody's doing. We got gun-loving grandpas out there. You got the Grim Reaper is out there. Kingpin, Guitar Man, Pete, they had a nice little conversation going, we should say. Let's see here who else. We got the Gun Snobs out there. And Midnight Range TM's out there. DTP's over on YouTube as well. Gizzard Gary's over here working double duty as always. Ferrets with guns out there. What's up, man? Let's see here. Am I missing anybody? Local 223's out there. I think I saw some other people just hop in. Johnny Sprague's out there. So if you guys are out there, like I said, we welcome everybody to the channel. Welcome everybody to the show. Tonight's going to be a fun show. We're going to talk home defense. And a lot of people, what's up, D-Mont and JJ's out there. Gun Cleaners, what's up, bro? I'm going to see you in a month from today. Can't wait to get down there and see Rod again and other friends of ours. And Darth Magnum is out there. I almost call him Darth Mangum, but Darth Magnum's out there. Clover Tack's out there. Glimtech Arms, what's up, Glimtech? JS, Jason Stewart's out there. But yeah, we're going to talk home defense tonight and talk maybe about maybe some of the best guns to start out with and the best calibers, maybe kind of a little different setup that everybody might have. G-Webs is out there, obviously. But if you guys kind of want to talk about what your kind of situation is, you don't have to tell me how it's set up or where they are, but maybe tell us kind of what you've got going on for home defense for you and the family and what calibers you're using, and maybe ask some questions on what we have. Go ahead and ask questions. Tag us in the chat by tagging one of us in here in the room, and we will make sure we get those questions answered. And let's say hello to our homies out there on the panel from Arizona. We got the Godfather. What's up, G?
Hey, thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. And from the great state of Texas, the tactical virus himself. What's up, Clover?
I use cannons for home defense. So there we go. We're done. We can quit.
I've got a couple of questions to ask about cannons. I actually know that your family has a cannon, so I actually want to bring that up. Sorry, I'm a little dehydrated. I've been busting it the last couple of days, so I'm trying to get hydrated. So like I said, yeah, we're going to talk a little home defense out there and kind of talk about maybe what are for some beginners out there that might just be looking to maybe get into home defense. What are some good topics and different starters out there? What calibers might be good, and is there a strategy or a philosophy? And I want to start with G. I'm going to bring you in real quick and say, G, let's start out with strategy or philosophy. Do you have a specific philosophy on certain guns, why you pick certain guns to have around the house that are designed for home defense?
Since everybody lives in different houses, right, it's going to be a different answer for everybody. And bad guys don't rob themselves or necessarily their neighbors. So I don't think there's any place that could be, just considered, off limits, or, there's probably less likely places. But so anyways, it's probably advisable to always be in a certain state of awareness. And then certainly there's no excuse to not be prepared. But like I say, I'm far from the philosophy of like, here's the best thing. I will have, I guess, opinion on what doesn't work. I think there's things that I just wouldn't consider. But as far as like what's the ultimate, I think there's probably like a small toolbox of things that are appropriate, and it would depend on the circumstances what you pull out of that limited toolbox.
Sure. Now, you were talking about things that you would not consider. We'll get back into that in a second. And I think you bring up a really good point, because everyone's maybe houses are built differently. Some of them are in different neighborhoods, where some people, like in Dallas, where I grew up, you literally have 0 lot lines. So like 5 feet from the edge of my house was my neighbor. Now where I live, I don't have a neighbor for 500 yards or something like that. So like you said, if you're worried about over penetration with calibers and all of that, obviously where you live and where your neighborhood is designed and all that is going to come into place. That's a really good point. Johnny Sprague out there says, "Hey Ghost, how are you? My home defense is a Glock 17 on the nightstand. To get to the Remington 870 12 gauge behind the door, I'd hand the 17 to my fiance, so we're both armed and go from there." I like the fact that, and that's something that we're going to talk about, but part of a home defense plan or strategy is, if you have multiple people in the house, where are you going to stage guns? Is everyone in your house, proficient to handle guns, or are you the only one that's going to have to protect a number of people? So that's a really good point. Let's bring Clover in real quick, and it's kind of the basic starting out general question is do you guys, you and that guy's wife, have a strategy or a philosophy as to why or what guns you pick for home defense?
Not particularly. Her strategy is going to be to sleep. So, I hate to say that, but a tornado won't wake her up. So somebody trying to break in the house probably is not going to either. So it'd be my job just to keep them from getting to the bedroom, which is doable.
Well, and that's something we're going to talk about here, because I was reading something last week in a magazine. I pick up different magazines every now and then, and I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of the Recoil or one of those CCW magazines, and they were talking a little bit about home defense. It's kind of where I haven't talked about this in a year and a half. So that would be a good topic to come back to. One of them was saying that, and then someone was talking about it on a show a couple nights ago. I was listening, and they were talking about home defense, where their thought process is to, if someone breaks in the door and breaks down the door, do you go out and you start trying to hunt, or do you let them come to you? And I'm going to start with Clover. And in that situation, if someone does break in the house, do you feel like it's best for you to stay in one singular location and let them kind of funnel into where you are, or do you kind of go search for them a little bit?
I don't know. That's an interesting one. I guess it depends on the situation. So you're talking about basically there's a loud noise. I get up, sweep through the house, and the door's been kicked in. Right. I found nobody in the house. Right.
At this point, sure.
I'm probably going to call the sheriff's office at that point, and I'm going to play that by ear. If they seem receptive to go outside and check it out, then I'll go outside and check it out. If they want me kind of just to stand by, then I would probably stand by. But I gotta say that I would be inclined. I'm pretty sure they're gonna say do what you got to do around here. Probably tell me, do you have enough guns? Do we need to bring more? Probably what they're gonna ask. But I'm gonna be inclined to go out, and part of the reason I'm gonna be inclined to go out is because they could be, maybe they kicked the door in, and then maybe they decided that. I don't know. There's all kinds of, there could be yard tools. There could be any kind of thing that could be used as a weapon that they could be commandeering or something. So,
sure.
I don't know. I mean, that gives them more clout to I guess if they come in the house with that, it's going to give you a little more clout to act in a defensive manner. But I mean, here in Texas, I mean, if they're on your property, you can do what you got to do.
Yep, that's the same way here in Arkansas. G, let's kind of ask you if you live alone right now, and so if you middle of the night you heard someone kick in your door, and obviously that's going to be a sound that we're all going to know what that sound is. When your door gets kicked in, it's not going to be silent; it's going to be loud, so it wakes you up. At that point, do you go searching through, or do you kind of find a corner in the bedroom and say, they come through that door, I'm unloading on them?
I live in a place that's very small, so if you kicked in the door, you would knock the bed, and I would know that you're knocking in the door. So
okay.
Not that big. There's nowhere to hide. I'm a hoarder, so they would either have to be like on top of piles of stuff or following one of the cat tunnels into the.
That could be a home defense mechanism right there. Setting up a maze through the stuff that you've got, where they can only walk in a certain place, and you've got them kind of funneled in.
Yeah, if it all falls on them, that's not my problem.
That's right. That's right.
But have been, I don't know. I think in a normal thing, it's about setting again, right? So if you're in a, out by yourself in the middle of nowhere, and it's going to take 45 minutes for somebody to arrive, if you were to choose to do that, versus, gated community where, you turn your lights on, 3 of your neighbors are going to wonder what's going on and be awake also. There's apartments, and everybody's got different situations, so. I think that's one of the reasons people go to, well, I wouldn't call it tactical training, but I'd call it maybe like a force on force or CCW application type of a training class. And that doesn't even need to be with firearms. That could just be a theoretical scenario type of class to talk about legal implications and everything. Because, again, just think about all the different types of housing and buildings. Like all those are going to be different. A kicked-in door in an apartment building is different than a kicked-in door in a ranch.
Right. Blue Steel out there says USP 45 with a TLR in the drawer, 10.5-inch AR with O light, PL2 leaning against the wall. There you go. Yeah, USP 45. That seems that's been pretty popular. A lot of people I've heard on different chats and different things. That USP 45 is something that I guess a lot of people have. I personally don't. For me personally, I think it really comes down to who all's in the house. If it was just me and my wife, knowing that my wife, how do I put this? I think in the given, she doesn't like guns. She doesn't hate guns. She just chooses. She doesn't want to be around them. She doesn't have any interest in them. But I think given a situation, if someone's in the house, she does know how to pull the trigger, take everything, aim and all that. She does know how to. So it all depends, I guess, is how comfortable I feel with her being in that bedroom and saying, hey, if anyone comes to this door without a safe word that I'm calling out before I come in, unload on them. If not, then I might stay back there. Now, here's another situation is if you've got family, other family, or people that are in your house, whether it's mom, dad, or the kids or kids and their friends and all of that, I think that might put a whole different perspective upon whether or not you go and actually try to engage actively the intruders or what. If it's just you and your wife and you're in one room, I could definitely see where staying in the bedroom or wherever you guys are and letting them come to you might be an actual probably good. But if there's other people in different rooms, not only do you want to get out there to make sure that they're safe, but you want to make sure that you're protecting them as well. So I think there are different situations, different scenarios, depending upon who else is in the house.
Depends on how it's laid out too.
That's very true.
Because my house is laid out, even when we had kids at home, my house is laid out in such a way that very, very quickly I can be between unless they come through a window, right? A bedroom window or something. That's a different scenario. But if you're talking kicking in a door, I can very quickly be in between all of the bedrooms and those doors very quickly. So there's no way they're going to get past me. They would have to shoot their way or whatever past me. I'm not going to miss them somewhere. I'm checking one room, I'm clearing one room, and then they're moving from one room to the next or something like that. There's no way in my house to miss somebody like that.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys this, because this was a great by Ozzy out there, says depends on if it's single story or a 2-story house or whatever. So that brings a whole nother dynamic. You know, what if this is kind of an open conversation, so don't feel like I have to call you on, just go ahead and speak out. But what if, guys, you're the only one that it's an upstairs bedroom and all the other kids or other people are either main level or basement or whatever? That might bring a whole different dynamic if you're the only ones upstairs. So, you know, is that change your mind also, Clover or G?
A lot of people I know, and again, this is a lot of people that I know. Mom and dad's bedroom is always downstairs. Kids' bedrooms are upstairs.
Yeah,
always.
That's
I don't know why. I don't know, and it's been that way for years and years and years. And I don't know if that's a common thing, or it's a regional thing, or if it's just general. That's the safest way to go about it. But that sort of puts the parents first line of defense, almost, right?
Well, yeah, and I grew up in Dallas, so maybe it's a Texas thing. I don't know. And that was the same way. My parents downstairs, kids were upstairs. I was the only kid, so mine was upstairs. But, you know, and my parents, hey, what's up, Clave? Clint's out there. My parents were not gun people whatsoever. So I know that the home defense scenario was not in their minds when they did that. Honestly, I think that for my parents, at least, it was, let's put him upstairs because it's harder for him to sneak out at night. Now, what they didn't realize is it's not that hard to sneak out from an upstairs window. But I think a lot of it may come down to if the kids are going to sneak out, not only are they going to have to come downstairs, but they're going to have to walk past our bedroom. But for those that are conscious about the home defense scenario, absolutely, I think that having the kids upstairs, parents downstairs, because whoever comes in your house is going to have to get past you and up the stairs to get to the kids, and that gives you a little bit more time maybe to take care of business if you have to.
I don't have kids, but it could seem like, let's say there was a fire, you wouldn't want a bunch of kids running around getting in your way as you're trying to run out of the house. So if you keep them upstairs, then you got a better chance of getting out of the house quicker.
Right.
Well,
that's the first thing in your mind.
I don't even know what to say to that. I don't even know what to say. You know?
Well, you can always
assume that's how parenting works.
He's leaving out the fact. You put them a fire pole, you know, outside their bedroom window. It's all good.
Give them a rope. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Rope, anything, you know.
No, I think it's 100% of what you said. Like, if you put your kids upstairs, they're not messing around and screwing around in the backyard or watching TV, because the den was always downstairs. And then parents don't have to walk up downstairs all the time. Well, even though they do, but
it is a lazy parenting trait. There's no doubt about that. You know. Yeah. Now Warsaw there says he's heard that if you have an intruder in your home, you have to kill them or put them down. He's heard that if you just injure them, they can sue you, even though he or she had broken into your home.
There's always a possibility if you injure somebody.
Yeah. I'm sorry. What'd you say?
Well, there's always the possibility of a civil suit if you just injure somebody, period. It doesn't matter if it's on the street or where it's at.
Anytime a trigger's pulled, no matter where you are, unless you have a state that has different things, but most of the time, if you pull a trigger, there's going to be a civil suit at the very least coming at you.
And if you got home, and if they find out you got homeowners insurance too, especially.
Oh yeah, Mr. Big Kid's out there and Sandy's out there. What's up, Sandy?
So
yeah,
that,
I mean
that conflates. That's like old wives' tale, whatever, Fudd wives' tale, whatever the equivalent of an old Fudd's tale is, conflated over and around on top of each other. So there's stand your ground in there, and there's lethal force in there, and it's conflating or confusing a bunch of that stuff. So there's justifiable, and then there's non-justifiable. But justifiable doesn't matter what state you're talking about, even though each state has its own laws about where and when and that kind of thing. It's all about if there's life or, you know, the danger to life or whatever. So to go through it in pieces. Not to mention, okay, the intruder in your home, you have to kill them and put them down. So you only shoot to kill. That's correct. You don't shoot to wound. The long ranger stuff, shooting a gun out of people's hands is fallacy. If there's an intent to kill you or harm your life, then you need to end that harm, and it's not done by wounding someone. So it's not that we are interested in killing. It's just that the most practical way to end the danger to you or others is to put that person down. And there's just not a way to push, shoot somebody in an arm to the point where they're gonna, stop the attack. You can't anticipate that, and it's not your burden as a victim to need to deal with all of that. So the part about killing is more about you need to stop the threat. So the word kill is a connotative word that has a lot of implications, and I suggest not using it when we're talking about lethal force incidents, because it has so much fiction and just connotation to that word. But if you do have to use lethal force, if you're forced to use lethal force in your own home, then the whole part about that they have to be in the home or in the doorway and all that comes from, again, whatever you call old fudge tales about justification. Mm-hmm. So it's something that it's worth going to CCW classes for, to get experience on instructors who are familiar with the laws and with explaining that better than we can, because they've done it repetitively and they can do it more accurately for your state. And you can audit CCW classes for free. Almost, I've trying to think of times when I've been told no, and I don't think I ever was told no. Especially if you're doing some kind of a creation of content, so you can help them promote their training, or if you're just an active citizen who wants to learn more and add to your inventory, your toolbox, audit a class, sit down and participate in the class without doing the shooting drills or any things that cost them money, fingerprinting and all that stuff. Don't take a burden on their time. But if you experience the class, what you'll experience is the questions from the students and the answers. And there's a lot to address in that particular thing. But for home defense, that's one of the things, like I say, I won't even consider certain things for home defense because they're not going to accomplish the job of stopping the threat.
Right. Now Clover out there is Warsaw is going on, and there's some things out there that, and Clover brings up a good point. You got to separate civil versus criminal. Castle doctrine, stand your ground, whatever your state's going to call it. Most states are going to have something that says if they're inside your house, you have the right to defend you and your family. Now that has to be given to you by the government, but most states have put something in writing to guarantee the right that if someone's breaking into your house, you have the right to defend you and your family. Understand what Clover's saying. I'll bring Clover in here in a second, but there is separate meanings between civil and criminal. And a lot of states will say that if you're not charged, found no reasonable reason to charge you with anything, or you're found, innocent of a murder or manslaughter or aggravated assault with a handgun or whatever, then they can't sue you in the civil court. Now, my state, unfortunately, is not like that. So even though you're found innocent or they don't charge you, they can still charge you civilly. So, Clover, do you want to kind of go over what you're talking about?
I absolutely do. You start dealing with court systems and stuff. That's where I love this kind of stuff. So, first of all, realize that, I could go down and file paperwork and I could sue Warsaw simply for not liking what he said in the chat just now tomorrow. You can sue anybody, anywhere, at any place, at any time for anything, right? Doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere. Doesn't mean it's going to go to any trial, but you can darn sure sue anybody for anything you want. And I think we see that a lot nowadays. So that said, even though there are states that, okay, this person has defended their home, let's say, the intruder lives, whether the intruder lives or not, actually is even irrelevant to the civil suit because the family can file suit, right? So again, we get back into anywhere, any place, anytime, by anybody can file a suit. Where that goes is what we have to look at. We don't need to be concerned or worried about a civil suit. People, I've been sued multiple times civilly. Okay, not for this instance, but other things. First of all, don't get worried about that because people throw it around just as a threat more than anything. But I think something very important maybe that needs to be talked about, that needs to be thought about, is the gung-ho attitude and all this other stuff that people tend to have. So let's say that you've got an intruder in your home. Let's say that you put that intruder down. Let's say that maybe you just injured, that intruder, whatever happens, right? And then you're faced with the civil suit at the same time you're on social media talking all big gun, tactical, kill them all, whatever, that's in civil court, they can use that against you. So I think we have to have a healthy respect for human life. We have to understand that even though that's an intruder, that's somebody looking to take our life or our family's life or do us harm, you're still right. You're still acting on another human being, and we have to take that very seriously before, during, and even after an event like that happens. And I think it's particularly important that we watch it in the aftermath because of the civil aspect of things.
No, I agree 100%. And because, like you said, someone brought up OJ out there, and obviously he was found now guilty in criminal court, but owed, I think it was like 40 million or something like that he owes a couple different families in civil court. Right. Understand this as well is
he run his head after he was acquitted from criminal.
What's that now?
Part of what got him is exactly what I'm talking about. He was acquitted on the criminal side, and he did nothing but run his head.
That's right. That's right.
He'd have just shut up and went on about his business,
Yeah, and you're right. And we were talking about something off air. I'm bring that scenario up, but they're going to look at whether or not how much you train. Where you've got your training for what kind of training. They're going to look at all that stuff because all they're trying to do, and here's the difference in civil court, it doesn't have to be a unanimous decision. It just has to be simple majority. And so they're going to bring up anything they can sway a jury that says, this guy's got thousands of hours of training. He's trained all this, and he's got hundreds of guns. He's just looking to shoot someone, and this was his chance. And that comes into concealed carry as well, not just home defense, but self-defense out in public. Those are going to be questions. Those are going to be things that are going to be brought up. And it's kind of like what Clover says. Don't worry about that. That's them doing their job as lawyers. If it's a clean shoot and someone's in your house and they're trying to harm you or your family, let them say all that, because if you have a lawyer that does anything right, all they got to do is say they intruded in their house. They were on their property in their house, and they were trying to do them harm. He protected his family. Boom, it's over with. But they're going to bring up a lot of different things that says this guy's been waiting. It's just been waiting for something to happen. And so that's kind of where we are. And it depends, I guess, where you live and how anti-gun that your prosecuting attorney or district attorney or the judge or whatever.
The jury panel. The jury panel, right? I mean,
jury panel,
I mean, if you're in a really liberal area, that's why I said you're really on the civil side of things. You need to really, really be careful. I don't know what the word for it is, but and I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk to, and I have talked to, but I don't think I've ever went down this road with people that have been involved in defensive situations. They've taken someone's life in a defensive situation. It would be interesting to actually hear their process and what goes through their mind and other stuff. I would hope that some of the stuff I've heard people say is not true. That I would absolutely do it again, and I'd do it better, and I'd do it this way, and he had it coming, and talking all kinds of disparaging remarks about the intruder, or just being a butthole, online, on the record, because in that civil instance, I would venture a guess that more dirt, right, is going to come out in the civil
absolutely
than it would in a criminal. The DA that's prosecuting a criminal, he's going to go on hard facts and evidence and those smoking guns, and he wants, for the most part, an easy win. But some ambulance chasing lawyer that the family or the attacker or whatever is picked up to sue you civilly, they don't care, and they're gonna ravage your social media. You're right. They're gonna look at training, and they're gonna look at all kinds of crazy stuff. They're gonna get down to how many guns do you own, why did you choose that particular gun. They're gonna try to pull the focus off of this dude was in your house, this dude was threatening your family, and you know the appropriate response was to put him down. But that's what they do in civil court is they throw this flurry of mud and garbage to the point to where it masks that, and then it confuses a jury, especially a more liberal jury. And like you said, it's not beyond a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. So if there's anything that even remotely in that mudslinging sounds reasonable, then unfortunately, here's the thing with a civil suit as well, though. That doesn't take your rights away. That doesn't send you to jail, and you can't get blood from a turnip.
That is true.
So like I said in the beginning, don't let that be a part of your worry. I mean, understand how it works, sure, but don't let that be part of your worries at all. If you've got to put somebody down that's harming your family, put them down. Or attempting to harm your family, I should say.
Well,
yeah.
There's lack of awareness that can cause you great frustration and challenges in your life. So the responsibility to carrying a firearm is an individual one and not mandatory, but the extent to which you appreciate the consequences of any actions done with a firearm in today in this country. We live in a time when the information is available to us at multiple levels and multiple methods, and to be unaware of it it would be sad. There's really no need to be unaware of it, and to act recklessly or inadvertently out of unawareness would be frustrating to after the fact in 2020 hindsight. I'm just going to add that some of the best, you guys all brought up valid points and everything. One of the better explanations of all this was done by an ex-Border Patrol guy who was doing CCW classes here in Tucson. And there's 4 courts. Everybody talks about civil and criminal. Civil is individual against individual, me against you. Civil is criminal, crimes against the society or against the state. So the state is your adversary in a civil court, or excuse me, in a criminal court. In a civil court, it's the individual or their family going against you. Okay, so that's the 2 main courts, but we have local and we have federal level courts as well. So while you can only be tried for a crime in once, you can be tried for a crime at 2 levels. And so if you shot a moving train, for example, you're going to get in trouble for shooting a moving train, and then you're going to get a whole other federal crime for shooting at a train. So carrying firearms in areas and in physical locations on the planet that may be within 1,000 feet of some place. And now there's 4 court cases potentially coming at you. While they can't put you in jail for civil, they can take everything from you and destroy your life and your family's lives forever. And it doesn't need to take from you to go to them to have it destroyed in the bureaucracy. And some things, terminology, awareness, actions you can take responsibly pre-situation, pre-incident can be, I can't even explain how crucial they can be to be aware of. So when we say things like take a CCW class occasionally, go to training, that has nothing to do with trying to emulate a Rambo movie or Commando or something. It has nothing to do with John Wick. It has 100% of the things to do with you realize the way that you carry yourself walking into a 7-Eleven on a Thursday afternoon. The result of 15 seconds later could be your relationship with your children for the rest of your lives.
Correct. Absolutely. To bring it back more towards the home defense, Darth Magnum says he lives with his parents when he's on leave in an apartment with a dog on the bottom floor, and his mom freaks out, so his dad has to calm her down because his room is the closest to the front door. He says he has an HK USP C9 and a Mossberg Shockwave with 2 slugs first, and the what is that? I can't see that. My eyes.
3 double lock buck.
3 double lock buck. Okay, I couldn't see what that was. I didn't see that. 3 double lock buck, both with guns, have lights. So yeah, and that's a great little transition, because what I want to do real quick is talk about the beginnings of, for someone that might be new, that has never been a firearm person or a gun person, and then their neighbor or someone they know, or even them, have obviously, unfortunately, maybe have had their house broken into. Kwaku, what's going on? Kwaku is a buddy of mine that I trained with up with Jaeger. So what's going on, my man? Good to see you. He says he's always wondered why would an injury or a civil suit side with a criminal that broke your home. And I think that that's an interesting question, and I'll answer that really quick, in my opinion, before we move on. And I think a lot of it comes down to, it has nothing to do with that person being the criminal. It has nothing to do with that person breaking the law and entering your home or your residence or your property. In a civil case, it's going to come down to much more emotions instead of facts, and they'll discard the facts that they actually broke the law by entering your property. What they're going to go into at that point is it justified force? Is lethal force justified in that situation? And that's much more of a civil case kind of a thing, where they're not going to talk about that pretty much in the criminal. What they're going to talk about is the person breaking in. Was it a justified shoot? Not lethal force. They won't really get into that. Was it justified to protect yourself? The civil case is going to get into all of that other stuff, all of that mashed potatoes, really kind of absorb everything else.
Yeah, with criminal, it's without a doubt, beyond a shadow of a doubt, were you justified, right?
A reasonable doubt.
The civil era is there any way this could have been avoided?
Exactly.
That's the way the civil works. Two totally different approaches.
Yeah, and they don't care about the fact that they broke the law already by entering your house.
No, because the whole idea of did you do it, that's out the window, because you did it.
That's criminal.
Right? You pulled the trigger, you put the guy down, you injured the guy, whatever. You did it. So that's not even a factor in civil. Civil is, could that have been avoided? Did you do anything for that could have been avoided? Or was this something that, was there something in your psyche that, like we were talking about with the traded or whatever, that, oh, he trained so much that he just had that killer mentality, or something. I mean, yeah. Could have been avoided, but if you had not had all the training, with somebody with all this training, would they have done this? That would be a question you would hear in civil court.
Or you probably weren't going to pull the trigger if you hadn't been trained, or at least familiar. Yeah.
Right. But they'll confuse. It's all about confusion and misdirection in the civil court.
Smoke and mirrors, man. That's what it is. David out there on the gun channel side says that Budget says it best: the means, methods, and opportunity to defend themselves against the bad guy. That's exactly what we're talking about. Now that's train. Go ahead.
We're talking more about the legal system than home defense, I think, but I'm not going to.
I'm trying to get back there. Yeah.
Well, I just don't want to leave it with any. I don't want to be complicit. I like the legal system, and if a bad guy sets up an ambush and figures out a justifiable, a legal way to create a situation in order to kill someone, we have civil options so that you can't just hide in the bureaucracy. So it's frustrating when a criminal or the family of a criminal will come after a victim, and that's obviously what gets highlighted in the agenda-based media, which would like to see our system crumble, and they know that the system is strong enough to withstand more than just civil wars. But in order for the system to crumble, it needs to have lack of faith, right? It has to have lack of people who are interested in seeing the system succeed. So they're only going to focus on the errors. But I just want to throw out there, the civil cases are for things like OJ, where people can be technically legal, as a justifiable from whatever situation, but then still have repercussions. And it's not always abused. It's often used for victims to challenge the wrongs against them.
Very true. Very good point. Warsaw brings up a good point. What about security cameras in your home and show them the footage? He's seen a guy whose house got broken in, had 5 guys with armed thugs or armed with guns, and the owner had to use his AR-15. Now, people will sit there and say, why do you have to use an AR-15? And we're going to talk a little bit about different types of guns here. Obviously, if you have security cameras and the access to them in your house and all of that, that's going to help you in more ways than one, especially if you do it the right way. If your cameras specifically show people break into your homes and they're already armed when they come in and all of that, obviously that's probably going to help you in the long run. Just also understand that if you have cameras in your house, that can be used against you, obviously, also. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to play the conspiracy theory. I'm just saying that if you have cameras, they don't always work in your favor. And this is going to talk about how you handle home intrusions and home invasions. Having cameras is a double-edged sword, so just be very, very careful. So let's talk real quick, guys. Let's kind of transition back to home defense, and let's assume that someone out there is listening, and like I said, they either know someone who's recently been broken into or their house has been broken into, and they're looking to go and find something that can help protect their family and their property. Start with G and say, if you've got three, and money's not an object, we're not going to talk price. I'm not saying specific guns. Let's kind of talk maybe types of guns. And you want to bring 2 or 3 guns into the mix. Kind of what would be the 2 or 3 guns that you might look and you know, I would say suggest to someone who's looking in to get into a home defense arsenal.
So an AR-15 and something like a Glock full size that has a light rail and a light on both of those, and then a cell phone and a set of keys to your house.
Okay. For the ignorant and the blinded, and ignorant, I'm not using in a negative term. I'm saying ignorant is they just don't know. And we get this question asked a lot is why
the correct way to say 9mm shooters, or
yeah, well, I knew that was going to come to, yeah, but why would an AR-15 platform rifle, pistol, SBR, why would an AR-15 be something that could be useful in home defense if someone was to ask you that?
AR-15s have the best potential. They're the best machine for the job. They're the easiest to work as an individual. They're light enough that you can use them with one hand, but they're capable with both hands. They can be used at any distance inside the house or outside if necessary. They can defend your home from anything from an individual or a critter to a tank or a mob, literally. And we've seen evidence of that. They're ballistically the best machine. They lose their energy in the first thing they hit, and you can completely control where each round is going. They hold 30 rounds, so no matter what's coming, you're capable and ready. You can be slung over your back, and your hands are free for holding kids and dogs and providing medical. They hold lights without any extra work. Once they get hot, they're difficult to take from you, and they can be used as a melee weapon if necessary.
That's beautiful, because that's kind of exactly what I would say is, and I think that the biggest thing that we're going to sit there and say is capacity is wonderful, but I think that the modularity of an AR platform with different Picatinny rails and different things that you can add, like a laser or a light or whatever it is, because that's another thing also. And I love the fact that you said a handgun AR, but both of them have lights. Now, everyone knows I'm not big for having lights on my guns. I will say this, I have 2 or 3 guns that are maybe more that are stationed and staged around the house. All of those guns that are not going to be taken out for concealed carry, that are there strictly for home defense, all have lights on them. And remember, you may not like to carry a gun, but if you're going to have a gun in your house, in your nightstand or whatever, make sure that you have access to a light. Even if you don't want to attach it to your guns, have access to a light, because if you don't, in a situation that you're going to have to use deadly force or lethal force, it could come down to, once again, back in the lawsuit, is if you don't have access to a light and no one sees a flashlight anywhere near the house, bed, anywhere, they come in doing their investigation, they're going to sit there and say, how are you able to identify the threat? And that can be argued. I can sit there and say, we all know our house, and I like to keep my lights off. If someone's going to come in my house, all my lights are going to be off. There are certain things in my house and a certain scenarios that with my family and all that, we all have scenarios that we can know if it's who it is, but also we're going to know our house better than anyone else. So especially if you're like, gee, if you've got a lot of stuff in your house, having the lights off is going to help you because they don't know the layout of your house. They're going to be stumbling, fumbling, knocking into things. You're going to know where they are without having those lights on. But having access to a flashlight or a tactical light on your guns is going to be extremely important, whether you use it or not. It's going to be extremely important because people are going to bring up, how did you identify? So awesome about the AR and the handgun. Clover, if you had a 2 or 3 gun kind of a repertoire of guns for the beginner, what is something that you would recommend?
I am not, I'm going to take some heat for this, but I'm not a fan of, I don't mind it, and to each their own. I'm not a fan of a rifle or a pistol caliber carbine in a home defense situation. I'm just not. For me, I'm going to say a full size handgun. Not a CCW, get a little better. You've got more real estate for that light you're talking about. If you opt to go with that, I prefer to use a light in the hand. You also got longer sight radius, potentially more capacity, because I do agree with the AR aspect on capacity, but you can get half that anyway with a full size handgun, and then a pump shotgun. I mean, semi-auto, if you can find a cool enough one, I guess. But a lot of semi-autos, you're stuck with 3 rounds. You got to remember that, where you can pull a plug on a pump and you've got more. So, yeah, pump shotgun and full size handgun. One thing you're talking about, G brought it up. We've danced around it. The idea of the cameras that was mentioned in the chat, allude to it as well, is the best home defense is to never have to use anything because you have deterrents and stuff in play.
Correct. So let me ask you this. Without telling us it's a yes or no. Do you have external deterrents before they even get to your front door?
Well, lighting, outdoor lighting, and a lot of houses now, especially new houses and stuff, I certainly don't want to show off my house. So I don't have the whole uplighting stuff, right, from the flower beds. But a lot of houses are doing that. It lights up the yard really well, everything else. I've got security lights and stuff outside. It's not necessarily a lot of the things that are deterrents serve multiple purposes.
Sure.
Outside lighting around my house allows me to work and do things if I need to at night, as well. So, for my house, there's some geography at play with me as well. And I know some people, depending on where you're at, you live where you live. You're not going to go out and buy a new house or buy land and build a new house simply to, deter people from doing things. That's asinine. I would not expect that. But, how people get to your house and things like that. For me, with the driveway, the way the house sits, a lot of other factors. It's not an easy in and out. It's not like a neighborhood where you're going to walk down the street, kick in the door, grab something and run off. It doesn't work that easy. Neighbors, you spoke about your neighbors, how close your neighbors are, right? What kind of hours do you keep? People don't think about that, right?
That's a great point.
Are you on a schedule to where, you get off at 5, by 5:30 you're home, by 9:30 all the lights are out? Is that a regular thing? Do you ever mix that up? You said you don't leave lights on in the house. I'm curious, do you have accent lights? Do you have any type of light? Yes. Or is it pitch black?
No. My bedroom is pitch black. Out in the living room, when you walk in my front door, we have a big living room and kind of a dining room and the kitchen, all kind of in this big kind of open space type thing.
Right.
And all the bedrooms are obviously on different wings and all that, but the main area, we've got little accent lights that are on, probably like 2 or 3 in each room, just to kind of give enough light into a direction. But we also I have lights also that are motion detected. So they're not on all the time, but they will come on if motion walks by them. So that lets me know that if the lights that I know are always on, are on, obviously, but then a couple lights that I know that are motion detect, I can almost kind of track maybe where they're going. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and the another thing, one thing I like is at your entry points, have your entry points well lighted at night.
Absolutely.
Because they kick that door down, they're standing in a spotlight and everything else is dark. So they can't see what's going on down the hallway or in the kitchen or, you know, whatever, because it's dark in there and they're standing in the light.
If you've ever been outside when you're a kid and you're outside at night, you can see inside someone's house very easily, but they can't look from the light to the dark well. So you have that tactical advantage being in a dark place looking to the light, just like you said.
And they realize that. A lot of people say, well, they're able to look through the window in the door, this, and see what I've got. Well, odds are they're not stupid. They know you have a big screen TV. Everybody's got one, right? Or, and a DVD player and probably a stereo. They get that. They pretty much can know by the vehicles you drive and the way you dress, if they watched any at all, they got a pretty decent idea of probably what they could find in your house. That's just any kind of burglary thing that's paying attention. Any kind of, now, you know, you're going to get people that are, you know, stoned out of their gourd or, you know, whatever, you know, I hate to say an amateur thief or, you know, an amateur hoodlum, but they're out there. But we're talking about the guys, the girls, the whoever, I guess it's not gender specific, being a criminal, but that do it basically for a living, right? Career criminals that do it, they're looking at certain things and lighting, the types of locks that's on your door. Are you double locked? Do you have that deadbolt? Do you have the plates over your door? You know, your door hinges, are they, you know, I don't know if that's called kicked in proof or whatever, but they make those, man, you can put up certain studs, you can put things over the hinges and stuff like that, that you could kick them in, but I mean, it takes an awful lot to do it, right? Do you have a dog in the yard or even in the house? It's even going to yap. I mean, even a lap dog, something that's going to make noise. Yep. Do you have that alarm? Do you have cameras that are over the outside door, looking, even if they're fake cameras, right? That you put a 9-volt battery in, it causes a little red light to blink. That could still be a deterrent. They see that and they're like, I'm not able to even kick in that door without somebody seeing me because there's a camera there, you know? I just think there's all kinds of things that can be done that would eliminate the situation most of the time, not all of the time. Like I said, you're gonna get, there's evil in the world, and there's you know, drugged out people in the world and people that are at their wits end or whatever that will do all kinds of crazy things. But I think at least for the crime syndicate or whatever you want to call it, those career criminals, I think there's a lot of steps to deterrent that we can use, that they'll go somewhere else. They'll go down the street.
Now, I've got a question on here from Kwaku. And Kwak, like I said, he's a young man that I met who had at Jaeger, had very little experience with firearms. We're talking maybe a couple of months of owning his first gun and no training until we met at Jaeger. Great young man. I think he got his first job out of college, moving up to Chicago. I think it's Chicago area. And he's asked a question, which I think is great. He said, for us that live in places they can't use ARs for home defense, what's a good replacement? And he later on says, not shotguns. So I'm going to start out by saying that I think that I'm a big handgun guy, and I think everyone knows that. Yes, I have a shotgun. I've got ARs. I've got AR pistols. I've got pistol caliber carbines, and I've got those staged throughout the house. So basically, I'm not going to be anywhere in my house that I'm not probably less than 10 steps from having access to a firearm of some sort anywhere in the house. And some of them are, I have a shotgun that I don't particularly care for shotguns, but I've got a shotgun, and it's like at different places, but most of the things I like are handguns. Now we're going to talk about handguns, and I think Clover might have brought it. Maybe it was G. I don't remember. It was obviously one of the two, but having, you know, a Glock or an HK or, you know, something that has 15 to 17 plus one capacity, because at that point you're talking about, hopefully you only have to take one shot, but you have the capacity in these full size firearms now that are double stacks or 17+1. So you're going to have plenty of capacity. Now, I'm going to say also, make sure that you have something with a Picatinny reel on the bottom of it. And most guns these days are going to have some sort of maybe 1 or 2 specs, but it's enough to put a light or a laser or something. Even on top, you have to put a little RMR. I'm not a big dot fan on handguns, but some people are. That's cool. That being said, you have a room to put a laser or a light on that handgun, let's say a 15 or 17+1 capacity. And I'd go a step further. I would say putting night sights on your handguns in the house is going to be crucial, because the last thing you want to do is be scared, adrenaline's pumping, and people don't think about this stuff. But and I love fiber optic sights during the day, but at nighttime, if it's at night, having those night sights, at least the front sight being a night sight of some sort, is going to help tremendously, because at that point you're going to have something that your eyes can focus on immediately, to where you're not just kind of quote unquote shooting blind. And I hate to say that, but I do say that I suggest having at least a front sight being a night sight on your handgun. Clover, what do you guys have to say about for someone that can't use a shotgun or AR for home defense?
Well, Johnny out there, and I mean, this kind of will play into what I was talking about too, that I don't necessarily agree. He said his problem with a handgun is it can be hard to use when you're startled out of a deep sleep. And my thought is, how so? Because you've got grip safeties, trigger safeties, the dingus, you pick it up, you pull the trigger. So with an AR or a shotgun, you're going to pick it up and flip the safety off, or are you going to leave it down with the safety off? Or did you put it down with the safety off when you put it behind the door? Those are extra things that you're going to have to worry about that with certain handguns you don't have to worry about. You pull it out of the nightstand drawer and point and pull the trigger, right? So I don't know that I agree with that. But yeah, I mean, I said it earlier, full size, call it a range toy if you want. A lot of times that's what I call my full size pistols, because they're really not appropriate. You could open carry them or something like that, of course, if you wanted to, by guess, but not appropriate for concealed carry. But yeah, full size pistols. I mean, you get, I don't know. I think you get you're almost as good firepower wise, I think, as you would be with a rifle. You're in a much smaller package. You don't got to worry about, potentially somebody grabbing it or, something like that. I mean, maybe a ninja, if you're attacked by ninjas, that's a possibility, I guess. Yeah. I mean, he said if you can't use a shotgun, right? He can't use a shotgun or rifle.
No shotgun. Yeah.
A crossbow. Crossbow is always a good choice too.
There you go. G, what say you?
So if it's, never a shotgun, I couldn't disagree more. I think shotguns are the worst option. I got no place for anything except bird hunting. So I do not like shotguns. I'll debate anybody on that anytime. Long gun versus a handgun, or just, as I already said, handgun with capacity, something you're familiar with, and that has a light on.
They're not able to have ARs. So a long gun, a bolt action or something like that might be fine, but let's say he can have an AR. So yeah, I would say maybe bolt action, long rifles are in play here.
Well, nobody wants a bolt action. That's ridiculous.
I would agree. I'm just saying that it's in play here. I want to specify that he said no ARs.
But when you're talking, again, home defense, people scenario this for some reason. Everybody, it seems like, I'm assuming, because you have these conversations. I've been having these conversations for something like 7 years in live chats like this, and this is not a rare conversation to have. And I think people think of, a hallway with a bunch of bedrooms on it and a kitchen over there that's never in play. There's never bathrooms in play. Occasionally there's a second floor, but there's always a nice front door. I'm assuming from some sort of a driveway and maybe a getaway vehicle, and a rush of bad guys come in the front door. Who gets to play the scenario out? Like, who gets to claim that is the scenario? So if you look at real life, I mean, it's every other way from Tuesday. So I think that there's a lot of gaming, but anyhow, the handgun, as far as you want capacity and a light, and that doesn't have anything to do with not having another light in your hand. And we can have a whole other discussion on lights on firearms. But you brought up some great points, so we can leave it with that. But having a light on the firearm is what I'd suggest. But I don't think a handgun is a practical thing unless you're getting up and putting on a holster. What are you going to do with that handgun? You putting it down, putting it in your pajama bottoms? Handguns, especially a large handgun with a light and some ammo in it, weighs a lot. Handguns malfunction. You're carrying an extra mag for it. You know, they're an option, and for some places they're the only option. But no, they're not the prime option. You can sling a rifle. You can go out in the yard with a rifle slung, or set it down next to the door. You're outside in your pajamas with a big Glock or an HK that you take to the range. Like, what do you do with that? So, and again, you know, are we talking about walking into a neighborhood with 18 other people that woke up? Is that the scenario? Is it a crazy mob of drunk kids or communists and drove into the neighborhood in a pickup truck and they're jumping out with machine guns? Or is it, you know, a couple that are having a fight and they're shooting at each other in your bushes? I mean, there's so many things. People think, again, that it happens in your living room or in your kitchen. And then they jump to shotguns. And I'm going to just knock out shotguns real quick with another thing. Like, I'm just going to start destroying your house with a shotgun, for crying out loud. 99% of everything that actually happens out in the front yard or in the street. And now you've just taken distance and accuracy away from yourself with a shotgun or with a handgun. So you don't have to have one or the other, but I think an AR is the best thing you could possibly do. ARs are getting to be more and more commonplace. So if somebody sees somebody with a responsible adult with carrying a rifle out to a commotion or to something, and they immediately, you know, safely shoulder it or sling it, I think that's an example to be set, not something to hide or to shy from. Walking around with a pistol in your pajamas, which is ineffective if the thing's happening 2 blocks away.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about some ammo right now, and let's start with the AR. And this is not the only one that's out there, obviously, but this right here, Horny Critical Defense. This is the 223 Remington AR home defense with the FTX bullet. This right here was designed to help with overpenetration, help to quickly expand to where it's not going through, it's expanding on contact. So it will help if you're worried about overpenetration into or outside of the house. Obviously, this is not the only one out there. There are many home defense ammo out there for the AR platforms in different calibers. So someone asked out there, let me go back up here and find it. I think it was Jay Monty asked, so when it comes to calibers for home defense, it starts with 9mm and goes up from that. Same for small condos, apartment dwellers. I don't think that it starts at 9mm. I think it starts at a 22. People don't understand that just because it's not manly looking and it's not this big hulky caliber, I promise you at a short range and a proficient shooter, you can end a threat with one shot of a 22 long rifle caliber bullet. I promise you, you can. So the fact that people are sitting there saying we're going to completely dismiss 22, we're going to completely dismiss 38 special or 380, we're going to, you know, it starts at 9. I don't think it does. Now for me, I most of my guns that are PCC and handguns are 9mm for a reason. I like to share ammo with different platforms and all of that. But I think it starts at 22. Once again, I think that people need to quit this. I'm not saying you are Jay Monty, but I think people in general need to quit this just kind of disregarding the 22 long rifle. And that can end a threat with a 22. There's no one that says that from 21 feet away that a 21 feet away that a 22 is not going to be lethal. I promise you, it's going to end a threat. So let's start with Clover. Let's start with G on this one. In your opinion, home defense calibers, where does it start? At what caliber would you start it at to be people thinking about?
Center fire. So no, even in a revolver, even maybe an LCR 22 Magnum, so you could just keep double action pulling that trigger. If you're like arthritic or you're like super not familiar with firearms, maybe. But they make a stupid 9mm version of that dumb gun. So that is at least reliable, right? And you still get like 5, 6 shots. Is it 6 shots a 9 or just 5? But there's that 32 H&R that got wailed on by 380. If everybody remembers, there was like 32 H&R came up out of nowhere as a 6-shot tiny revolver with some capability compared to 22 Magnum, and it was center fire, right? And then 380 came along and just wailed on it, and then 9mm pooped on everything. But I think some calibers that you can start with, but 22, as much as I like it, there's too many center fire options that I'm down with. And if you're talking having to actually reload, the manipulation of an arthritic fingers on a 22 is unnecessary when there's a stupid fat 9mm or better 45 ACP.
And I agree with you 100%. I'm not suggesting that you start at 22. I'm saying that if you have a 22 and that's what you're comfortable with, and that's the only gun you have, don't think that that's not that you can't defend yourself in your home with. I agree. I think it probably does start with larger calibers, especially center fired cartridges, because I think that the rim fires, and I'm not well experienced with rim fire. Obviously, Clover, I'm going to bring him in on this. But I'm just saying that if you have a 22 and that's the only gun you have, don't let anyone tell you that can't defend you or your family. Is it the most reliable? No. Is it the most impact pound for the punch? No. But it will do its job for you until you are able to go get something else. So, Clover, 22, or where would you start?
Well, I think we call a spade here.
Okay.
Can a 22 do it? Yeah. Here's the problem. The problem with rimfire, and G hit the nail on the head. I agree with G. I'll take it a step further. I agree with G with center fire, but I'm gonna go probably 32 caliber or larger. Probably not gonna mess around with some weird 22 center fire or 25. So yeah, that's my answer. As far as the 22, we have to accept the fact that if you've shot any amount of 22, you know this to be true. Rimfire is notoriously unreliable as far as primer. Notoriously unreliable. You could have the best ammo. You could go get match grade, freaking whatever that's for a 50 round box is, $40 or something. Yes, they do sell 22 that's a buck around. And I can guarantee you, even at that level, and we're not talking about the 1,700 round bucket of bullets that most people are going to go get, or even the $10 100 CCIs or something like that. We're talking the really high end stuff. Every now and then you have one that doesn't go off. It's either a primer or the spring was weak at that particular given time when it tried to fire. Maybe the gun was a little dirty, maybe. But the fact is, it's notorious. It's not that it's not capable, but it's got to be able to fire before it's ever capable. And if you've got massive reliability issues, then I just don't see it as a viable caliber for any kind of self-defense. Now, that being said, as a backup, you carry every day, you something like that. We get out of the realm of home defense with this, but if you've got one thrown in your tackle box, toolbox, console, glove box, something like that, some kind of a little 22, great. You could use that to dispatch varmints or snakes or this, that, or the other, or whatever too. It's a very utilitarian thing to have. But as far as primary in any situation, I'm not a rimfire fan.
Yeah, Andrew Hefker out there says 22 still works 90% of the time, but that's not good enough. And that's true. It sounds bad, but 90% of the time is not good enough when you are
that's subjective though. Because here's my thought. If you're dealing and G and Ghost, both of you, go down this road with me for just a minute, and I want to know your thoughts. I'm going to pose a little question here. If you've got an individual out there and it's all they could afford, it's all they're comfortable with, it's whatever, they've got a little 22, what are the odds? And I this is where I don't necessarily agree with Andrew's ratio there. That ratio completely depends on the ammo that you use. So what are the odds these people are getting the best quality ammo if they're using a 22 as their primary self-defense? I don't think the odds, I don't think they're, it's like, okay, I'm not getting the most optimal caliber or handgun for my defensive situation, but yet I'm going to break the bank and I'm really going to do the homework and the research and dive into the best, most reliable 22 rounds out there, and that's what I'm going to buy. I just don't think that's a feasible scenario that the two line, when the two line up.
No, that's a great point. There was a question that I think G saw it, so he answered it. Georgia Rebel says, "What about the 357 Magnum?" Hell yeah! I'm one of those that I'm not a huge fan for revolvers in that situation, because of capacity we're talking. But absolutely, a 357 Magnum.
It ain't nothing wrong with a 38. Don't let people caliber shame you, man. 38 been putting people down for a long, long time.
Absolutely.
Right. So here's the thing. What's the point? So for $100 more, you can get a gun that shoots both. Shoot 38 all you want. So
yeah, no, I agree with that. Totally agree.
Yeah, 38.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
And then shoot 38 to your heart's content. And then if you got a 357, why not load 357? As long as you know how to shoot it, then you're good to go. Exactly. Yeah. And it's proven. I mean, it's a 357 right now.
Right. Yeah. I think he was just asking, is 357 a good
Here's why I'm going to even jump on that even more. Number one, somebody was asking about 10-round limit, and that's where I would switch from AR to pistol, because what's the point of trying to justify walking around with a 10-round rifle? That is too much fight in the stream, too much fight in case, right? You just don't need the grief. So with a 10-round limit, I would even suggest a 6-round 357, because you're not going to be reloading. Reloading is like ultimate dream situation in a prolonged gunfight, or like really your situation where you're grappling and the semi-autos are neat and everything, but they're so easy to screw up. They're so easy to malfunction. So you need extra magazines to get a semi-auto back into play. With a revolver, though, and it's just those rubber strips are super easy to carry in a pajama pocket. Even carrying around a revolver is just a cultural different thing, right? So it's different walking outside with not Dirty Harry's gun, but Grandpa's gun, right? Or World War I gun that doesn't scare anybody. And then you have that in 357. Now, let's say you got your shoulder rig, like one of these guide rigs, for like in a boat or in an airplane, where it's not really a shoulder rig and it's not really a belt rig. It's kind of just in front of your chest. It's just a leather holster that kind of goes around your shoulder. If you had one of those on the side of the bed and you put that on, right? You hear a commotion out front. You don't know what it is, but you're putting on your revolver. It's not that scary. It kind of looks like you're out going hunting and you just grabbed your hunting rig, right? And what if you had a 357 lever action? Now you've got capability to do pretty much anything that a neighborhood or a big estate or the neighbors or some critter running all around being weird rabbit or something. And you're talking about a package that's not going to scare anybody. You might get called John Wayne, but if you got a sling, which every rifle should have a sling, you can sling a lever action over your shoulder in 357. It's not a big rifle. Nobody's going to say, "Oh, there's a crazy rifle wielding lever action guy out in the neighborhood."
Well, let's take that in a different direction, because you were talking about the big semi-auto and where do you put it? What do you do with it? What if you had your holster hooked to a belt that stayed there and you did the same scenario you're talking about with that full size? You just slung it cross shoulder instead of actually putting it on as a belt.
Or a duty belt instead of an actual like belt loop belt. A duty belt that you can just go and click and you've got your holster attached to that. That could be something to think about as well.
War belt.
I call them war belt, but I didn't know if anyone else knew when I say war belt.
Well, a duty belt is what a cop or border patrol wears. War belt is what your door kicker wears.
Yeah. I call them war belts. That's what we call them. But if I was to say war belt, somebody like, what the hell is he talking about? So I think people know what duty belts are. But yes, exactly. But yeah, even putting that around your shoulder, I mean, using that as a sling in itself. There is a question out here from Midnight Range TM, and he says, in a home defense, Do you worry about defending yourself with magnums or rifles? I'm assuming he's talking about over penetration. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm assuming that's what he's talking about, maybe being too powerful. I think he lives in an urban, suburban, rural, urban area that might be worried about over penetration. I personally do not, because I don't have neighbors. I have property that, like, my nearest neighbor is literally 500 yards, maybe even more than that from me. So, deafening, not defending. I read it wrong. Do you worry about deafening yourself with magnums or rifles?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
What?
Does anybody here keep Ear Pro, whether it's the foam ones or anything?
Yep.
By the nightstand? I do.
Yep.
G, do you worry about deafening yourself because of any gun? It doesn't have to be magnums or rifles. I mean, a 9mm in a small house is going to make a lot of freaking noise. Do you worry about that scenario, or do you have Ear Pro handy around the bed, G?
Speak up now.
Huh?
No, I'm too old, I think. I do have Ear Pro around. Whether or not it's the first thing I'm going to grab, I doubt, because I've already lost a lot of it. People get a lot of concern about that if they don't shoot a bunch inside. So maybe if you shoot outside in a big field or something, or whatever, but once you shoot indoors a lot, you figure out it's concussion or whatever. But one shot isn't like going to a range and having 12 people constantly unloading full magazines, like a thunderstorm. It's
right.
It's like bang, and then it's over. You might get an echo, but I mean, it's definitely safer and everything. And it would look better, I think, to the jury of your peers that you were prepared and you had this stuff.
Sure.
But like anything, like you say, if you have a bad attorney or just whatever's given to you, if you're out of town or something, you picked up your Ear Pro at a hotel, they're going to say, "Oh, were you hunting? Like, why'd you have all this gear on?"
Yeah, I keep those little orange foam things, and I've got them with paracord, and I've got them attached to a paracord thing to where it's right there, so it's right next to one of the guns that I keep on the nightstand, and so when I grab it, I can put it around my neck. I can put them in, or I can at least have them available if I need to. It takes 2 seconds to do that. But honestly, I think you're right. I think, and there's people out there saying, I'd rather be alive with hearing loss than dead with perfect hearing. By taking that extra second or two, it really depends on the scenario. If in that situation, for me personally, if I have the time, then absolutely. If I hear someone in my house and I'm ready, they haven't come in my bedroom, but they're out there, I'm going to grab my gun, I'll put it on, and I'll probably go ahead and put my Ear Pro on. Now, if they're coming into my bedroom by then, I'm grabbing the gun and letting them have it. I'm not going to worry about it. But if I have the opportunity to put that on, then I probably would. And like you said, it depends on the scenario, it depends on where you are, what's going on. I think that having Ear Pro available is extremely important. I think that needs to be part of your home defense setup wherever you are. Whether or not you use it, that's really kind of up to the situation. That's my take on it. Now, Clover, you were talking about that also. You said you've got Ear Pro. What would be your kind of decision process of whether you use it or not?
That's going to be the sound, the sounds that are made, the urgencies, or something like that. I don't know that I would use it. Because I mean, those in the chat that have said it are right. I mean, that's something that's not, life or death situation or whatever, in that, because of the deterrence and the other things that make it a far-fetched, and the fact that we just live in one of the safest nations on the planet. Sure. The fact that, the odds are staggering and overwhelming that, I would ever be in that situation. One or two pulls of the trigger, one or two loud bangs. If my hearing's going to go, it's probably going to go at some other point for some other reason anyway. Right.
Right.
So, protect, the same way with eyes. I mean, you talk about the hearing, but are you wearing your eyes? What if, are you going to grab your glasses too, your safety glasses and go? I mean, what if you get powder blowback into your eyes and it blinds you, and here you are, you've taken a shot at one attacker and there's three, and now you're blinded. And
Yeah.
I mean, we can go down a lot of roads with all of that. So, I think that if you're hunting, I think hunting is one of the things where I get off on the whole eye ear protection. Hunters certainly can be. I know it's not traditional and a part of historic flood life that hunters wear eye and ear protection, but I think in this day and age, hunters need to, obviously if you're at the range, you need it. And I'm to the point now, especially with amplified hearing and some of the other stuff that can actually aid you in hunting. Big proponent for doing it at hunting, but in a self-defense situation, honestly, don't worry about it.
Mia and Mia out there are bringing up good points. They said, I'd rather be listening, hearing where they're moving throughout the house, and having the ear pro, especially the foam stuff. I mean, all I ever shoot with out in the range and all that is electronic ear pro. So I've got several pieces of those. So I might even put those by the bed.
Well, they make those in earbuds and on a little lanyard and all of that stuff too. That's what I use. When going hunting, I don't wear muffs. I have a little set of, I think there's sound gear. I can't remember the brand now, but, and they're amplified, and then they cut out at a certain decibel rating. But until that point, they're amplified, so you can actually hear more stuff going on. So there could be a benefit, but it boils down to time. I mean, do you got time to get those out and put those in?
In the perfect scenario, you're going to have time to get your hearing pro and get your eye pro and all of this, and it's going to be wonderful. Reality is, remember also, there's something we haven't touched on. Remember this. Chances are, if someone's going to break into your house, it is not going to be at 9 o'clock at night. It's going to be at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're going to already be asleep. So when you wake up, you're not going to be sitting there saying, I feel great. Oh, yes, someone's broken into my house. I'm energetic. I'm wide awake. No, you're going to be groggy. You're going to be coming off of a deep sleep or whatever. So you have to understand also that it's going to take time for your eyes and your mind to adjust to the situation. Just because you hear a sound doesn't mean that you're fully alert when you open your eyes. You have to assess the whole situation, get your mind set, get your eyes set, all of that stuff. So you have to understand that's part of it also. Now you're talking about adding ear pro and eye pro to the scenario. Unless you're a night owl and someone happens to be breaking in while you're up, remember, guys, there's a lot of this scenario that goes in that we don't even take into thought of. We're asleep, and some of us sleep very deeply. Like Clover said, his wife's not going to probably wake up, but if she does, she's not going to be completely alert for a minute or two. So remember that as well.
Now, Kinky, I was just going to say, Kinky out there was talking about suppressors, and I think if that's a situation where I don't have a 9mm suppressor, but I think that's a viable alternative, and not only for the hearing aspect, but the muzzle flash as well. So greatly reduce that muzzle flash, which is going to make even everything else more effective. So yeah, if you're in a state where you can have that, and I mean that's an option, and you're using a full-size handgun, the weight's not going to be quite so awkward. If you've got a quality suppressor anyway, it's not going to be super heavy. I think that's a great option.
300 blackout suppressed is going to be awesome in a little 10.5-inch inside the home.
Well, I mean, anything that's, if you're talking 9mm 45, something like that with a good suppressor, it's going to be the same. It's going to be very, very quiet.
Yeah. Not Hollywood quiet. People don't think that it's Hollywood quiet. Now, you were going to say something also.
I got corked. So I got gizzarded. So Masada Ayub, I got two things now because I was reading the chat. So Masada Ayub has a thing. Did we lose his audio?
Me?
No, okay. So Masada Ayub has a thing, and you could take it to the extreme where, soft armor, like what you'd see like a cop in a TV show putting on underneath of their uniform. where it's basically like a soft panel in front and a soft panel in back, elastic usually over the shoulders, and then like a elastic with Velcro around the waist to hold it together. So you sort of unvelcro, you know, from like your left side or something. You'd unvelcro one side, they call them cummerbunds, I think, and then you kind of slip out of it, right? So it's not really like putting on a shirt, but you kind of slip in and out of soft armor. You get the idea. Well, you can get admin pouches, like Blue Force Gear makes some stuff in elastic that's basically like magazine pouches. Saw Ayub's suggestion, either one of it in its books or an article, and sometimes when he's talking about stuff, he'll bring it up when he travels and stuff. You know, you're in a hotel, you don't know, or like you're saying, you're at home and you just don't know. You can have something like that staged next to the bed. Just leave it there, right? So let's say it's your carry gun or whatever. And let's say you unholster and you leave that on the nightstand. As an alternative, have something like a soft armor, you know, just whatever you want to call a soft armor vest, except in the front, you have like, let's say an elastic admin pouch, just some pockets where you could have your pistol, an extra magazine, cell phone, car keys. And now if you do have to go do something, you could easily have your Ear Pro, little foamies in there, right? Set of Eye Pro clipped into there by the ear thing. And if you had to hear a bump in the night, you slip that on. Now, sure, you look like Boomhauer from that one police academy thing, but you put a robe on over that and you're good to go. If you get locked out, if you have to tell the police, go around back, here's the keys, right? If you've got to throw them to your wife or something, you've got your keys, you've got a cell phone. And if your like routine is to come in and kind of disarm and put your cell phone on the bed, what's the difference between putting your cell phone in the bed and in the pocket of vest? Now, if you don't want to take it to the extreme of putting on a soft armor vest, his idea of having the soft armor vest is when he's in a hotel room and he needs to clear a weapon or clean a gun or something, he has that soft armor to aim into as a clearing bucket, so to speak, right? So it's like a practical use for him. And then why not? You've got it. You can wear it. He's a cop and stuff, so he's wearing soft armor. But if you don't want to do soft armor, you know, switch that out with one of those photo vests, like what Dano wears, like a fishing vest type of thing, or a rope. Now you don't look out of place. You just look like you threw your coat on. A windbreaker is a perfect idea. Again, as long as you've got your cell phone, your keys, and your firearm, then you're pretty much covered for the practical stuff. And then like with the stuff you kind of started talking about there, Ear Pro and Eye Pro, it's easy to incorporate that into it.
Right.
And then I'll just throw in there the dogs. Like, you know, if you get a good big fat dog where every time you come home you give it a treat, anytime some bad guy breaks in, that dog's going to start making a commotion when it doesn't get a treat, and that'll wake you up.
Well, here's my problem. Okay, so my daughter's got this dog, and we watch it for half the week when she's working, or now we're watching it full time when she's out of town. But when she's home and it's 2:00 in the morning, she'll see a deer out in the front yard and she'll start going berserk. Like she wants us to let her out and go play with the deer. The problem is I get so used to her start barking at 1 or 2 in the morning because she's looking at the deer that are out there in the front yard that I'm kind of immune to it. And I think that anytime you have a dog that will bark at whatever, you start getting immune to those barks. They're just barking at a rabbit or a deer or whatever is out in the front yard. So yeah, I'm a big fan that dogs are great, but you know, there also has to be, if they're a dog that will bark at anything, sometimes you drop your senses down because your mind starts getting immune to the 2:00 barks when it's that old cry wolf story or whatever. You know, this one actually might be someone there and it might not be the deer, but you're just dismissing it because of that. So yeah, dogs are great. Just kind of know the tendencies of your dogs as well.
Well, and if you're talking about something outside that's making a racket, my dog is one type of bark. You talk about somebody that's maybe walked up on the porch or something, that's one kind of bark. If somebody was to come in that she didn't know or whatever, totally different kind of bark. So you're right, and it's getting to know your dog and paying attention, because sometimes that's subtle, but my little dog has if it's like a threat or whatever to her, it's got a growl integrated into the bark.
Yeah, and you're right. So does every dog that I have. But yeah, so I mean, you're right. I mean, they might have different barks, but just saying, even if you're going to have your dog, make sure you know their tendencies, and whether that's a different kind of a bark or whatever, just be aware of those tendencies.
Right.
Now he's had to get used to the last year of a new tendency. Does Mellow's tendencies, are they different than?
Oh yeah, she's useless. Oro was an actual dog bred.
Oro was much
No.
older, so he's used to everything, right?
Wait, hold on. Oro was a Doberman bred to be like the pinnacle of an alert dog. That it was just in his DNA to alert and then let me know. So he was like have an ear pro on, and that was natural. Like I'm no dog whisperer. He just had that, right? So that was in him, and he was alert to that. This dog, useless. She's not like a little yapper dog where oblivious to everything, but she'll be as concerned about a fly buzzing around as any people. And you guys have met her, right? She's kind of timid still. So she's not, the dogs are different. Yeah, not all dogs are created equal.
Shorter than what she's used to having around her. So I think we freaked her out. No, but I think you're right. I mean, and there are dogs like that. Like you said, there are dogs that are going to behave instinctively different. Clover takes out there saying that, the snarl or the growl incorporate into that bark. Once again, dogs are phenomenal. I'm a huge dog person, and dogs are great for that initial deterrence and that initial notification that something's going on. And like you said, if you learn those tendencies and those signs that the dogs give you, some dogs will, instead of barking, they'll come to you and they'll nudge you, they'll do something, they'll lick you, and better, they'll do something to wake you up, saying, hey, something's going on. Just know those tendencies for those animals or whatever they do and whatever they are, because like you said, their dogs are instinctively going to do certain things.
And G had a good point when we're talking about, I think, about dogs.
Don't give him a big head.
He had a good point earlier when he was talking about the treat. Every time you come home, he was talking about giving the dog a treat, and I don't know about all that. But I think that every time you walk in the door, you come home at night or whatever, your dog is in the house. I think have a routine, right?
Absolutely.
Open the door, talking to the dog. Open the door, calling for the dog. Open the door and flip the light on. Open, you know what I'm saying? Every single time, and then that kind of cues that dog in. The dog's going to get used to that, to where they know just by the door opening. Of course, they've got an excellent sense of smell. They probably smelled you before you got on the porch, right?
You probably heard your car a half.
But even if they're older, and let's say their smell and other things are going, they could, just by what's going on around them, they know that's common movements and common noises. And flipping a light on is something that somebody entering your home is likely not going to do.
That's right. And those are great points. And I think one of it is, and I read this somewhere, that dogs are, aside from humans, dogs are the most, what do they call that? Routine oriented species of animal. And maybe because they are around humans so much, but dogs have their lives are basically routines. They know when it's dinner time. You don't even have to wait till 7 o'clock. They're going to know when it's 7 o'clock. They know that they know their cycles and their, so yes, if you can create a routine, like Clover was saying, then absolutely anything that disrupts that routine with that dog, chances are going to freak them out a little bit. And freaking them out is not a bad thing. Sometimes freaking them out makes them alert and aware of something's not right here. So absolutely, that's a great point. I don't know if someone's asking, does anyone trust dogs more than people? Absolutely.
Right.
Hell yes, as a matter of fact. No doubt.
Would you trust a monkey more than a person?
I've never been around monkeys, so I have no baseline to trust on that.
I don't trust anything that flings poo. I don't trust them.
Yeah, the flinging poo thing might be,
That just broke the trust barrier for me. Nope.
Well, dogs and horses might be unique in that, because you know what I mean, like other critters aren't, I don't think, at the same whatever Like,
but dogs and horses spend a lot of times around humans for the most part.
like they're like a whole different level, right? Maybe some other critters I'm not familiar with, like a goat or something in some part of the world, or a llama or something, right? But those like domesticated animals. But monkey, no way, I'm trusting no monkey.
Oh, hell no.
And a cat, I don't know what the deal is with a cat. The cats are around humans a lot too, and they're worthless when it comes to, we're talking self-defense and stuff, and it's like, what are a bunch of cats going to do? Seriously.
G's been exposed to some cats recently.
Does anybody in the Arizona area want 2 16-year-old cats? Because I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. We're trying to find a home for them. It's kind of difficult for older cats. So if you do know somebody in the southern Arizona, we'll drive them around to wherever. But they're good cats. They're 16-year-old girls. They're I don't want to separate them because they've lived their whole life together. But I just I live a life where I have to open doors and stuff. And these cats were indoor cats. But I mean, getting back to not kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding around there. That was for real. If you know anybody that is in this area that might need some cats, let me know. But cats are basically
years old. Is that is 16-year-olds? I don't know. Is that old or is that? I mean,
sounds super old to me. They seem like kittens. They jump all around and they don't seem elderly, but that seems super old, doesn't it?
Yeah. To me, it does. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They're little, but spry. Anyhow.
That's right on the tail, that's right on the tail end of like maximum average or whatever.
Yeah, I have no idea. I know that like I've always had bigger dogs. I've had sheep dogs and I've had greyhounds and I've had Great Danes and now we got labs. So I'm used to dogs with a lifespan of, 10 years. Hearing a 16-year-old cat, I don't know if that's old or what, because I've never been around cats. I don't trust cats. I think cats, and a lot of it has to do with the movie that was maybe about 10, 20 years ago. Cats just seem to be always thinking of evil things. You got to work too hard for their affection. I don't have time for that,
Yeah.
Okay, so Andrew said 16 is old, but they usually maybe have 4 or 5 years left. So maybe 15 to 20 years might be that average kind of cat life. I have.
Wow.
Yeah. So
16 is about the tops for average, but it doesn't sound like they're average. They've been well fed, well taken care of. I mean, they're just healthy cats. So,
and if they've lived with the other cat their whole lives, there's a lot to be said about the companionship between animals.
Right. Yeah, if one of them was to go, that it likely would be very quick. And that's another thing too with pets. And I'm sure anybody that's had any kind of pet, they realize once they get in bad health, it's typically pretty quick.
Yeah.
Ugh, look how a horrible place to go. Let's go someplace else, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Let's go quickly.
Cameras. Nobody said anything, and I'm gonna parent shame y'all. What about you do fire drills? Here's where you're gonna go if something happens. Here's where you're gonna jump out. Here's where we're gonna meet. Right? Here's a neighbor who's decent, who's gonna call the police for us, and we're gonna meet in their house. Do you have something like that with bad guys in the house type of thing? And then when people come over, is it something that's worth saying? Like, hey, you kids are going to go play in the backyard. If something happens, so-and-so is a good neighbor to run to.
Yeah. We do it at least once a month. And I'm not saying we as a family, because my wife, she's pretty much given up. If someone breaks in the house, it's what it is. With her, if I'm there, great. If I'm not there, it's what it is. No, I'm just kidding. But about once a month, I'll try to clear my house just randomly, at night, just for practice. And I know it sounds weird. I think it's fun, and I'm not doing it because I'm paranoid. I actually think it's fun. That's just me, though. That's how my mind works. About once a week, but once a month, we'll do something that we all have to, simulate something that's gone on, and we'll simulate someone coming up from the front door. We'll simulate someone coming up from the basement. We'll simulate someone coming up from the back door on the deck. Someone coming in from the garage. If they come in from here, what do we do? So I think a lot of it is repetition makes proficient. Same thing as in anything. Practice makes perfect. So we do about once a month. And sometimes we go every 6 weeks or something, but we try to do it once a month to where people know where firearms are staged. Once again, no matter what room you are in the house, you're no more than 10 steps away from a firearm anywhere in the house. So I want everyone to know we go over safe words. And yes, we have safe words. And if people laugh at me, that's just crazy. I don't think it is. I would much rather have my daughter come in at 2:00 in the morning and say, hey, say the safe word than guessing whether it's her or somebody else. So yes, we do stuff like that. Clover, what about you?
Not so much anymore. I mean, there was, man, like I said, the way my house was laid out, we didn't have to worry about it just too much, right? Because,
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know. I mean, everybody's got their own thing, and with me, deterrent level, I think, is really, really high. And then, like I said, being able to respond in a manner that gets me between myself and them. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as big of a thing and as regular, honestly, as probably it should have been, to be honest with you, in hindsight. So I don't disagree with going through having I don't know, the safety drill, the training, all that stuff.
G, I mean, you brought it up, but we'll ask you to answer that also. I know it's just you, but I mean, do you ever kind of sweep your house at night or anything like that?
Again, I don't think you guys understand the 1-bedroom apartment style place I have here. And it's nothing to sweep. I look around. You know.
You've never invited us to your place, so no, we don't have any idea of where you.
He has dirt floors, so he just doesn't bother sleeping. What he's saying.
I look up and out the stump, and then I'm okay.
On that one. So what we're going to start doing, guys, is we're going to start kind of cleaning up. It's been going an hour and 45 minutes. I had absolutely no idea. That's just been a great conversation. And it's a conversation I like to have every now and then to kind of refresh and all of that, because we have new listeners and all of that might be going through this. We had some great questions out in the chat. So thank you so much. If you're watching in replay or listening in podcast form and you have questions or whatever, put them in the comments below. We'll try to answer those questions. I would love to hear what you guys do for home defense, whether what weapons, what calibers do you, like G was asking, do you guys do home defense drills? Go ahead and leave those in the comments as well. I'd love to hear what you guys are doing. I'm going to run this through the room real quick. And G, what you got coming up? Do you have anything going on right now?
New stuff on the store, but I just wanted to encourage people to share the concept of Patreon. I know most of the people listening are probably already financially supporting the three of us, and others would be to mention it to people and not just share the stuff in real life, but some of the recent stuff with the Hangouts has got me thinking. We should solidify our real, what do you call in IRL networks. And, we have a lot of people joining us from all around the country, all different kinds of walks of life, and, literally diversity and exemplified, right? But we don't bring in our, like Patriots trying to do, like bringing people in from real life so that we become, like Clover would say, bridges to the local communities that we all have. They flip a switch or two, or something bad happens accidentally or inadvertently, a surge in growth or a disruption or a solar flare, and we're all cut off. We ought to emulate some of the villains and superhero movies, right? Like we should be able to mobilize at local levels and use ham radios and stuff to communicate. But we already have the communication systems established. They all rely upon networks, internet. So maybe think about just sharing Patreon, the concept of it. And like I was talking to a friend of mine who I'm going to be meeting up with this week, and he was telling me about how he saved $100 and something on his satellite cable, realizing that he could watch stuff on like Hulu. And that's somebody who has been one of the people that's been following me since '97, but doing all this stuff online. And somehow he didn't realize he could not pay $100 for some of these cable channels and get them online for basically a subscription of $14 or whatever it is.
I went from $140 a month in satellite to between Hulu and Amazon Prime. We're looking at about, let's say, $40 or $50. So I saved, about $100 a month. Absolutely.
Imagine if everybody took it upon themselves to just at the next gun show or at a gun shop when it's opportune, not to be a pest or anything, but just to think about it, to share something on a phone, show somebody, hey, here's a podcast. These guys talked about something like this. Do the kind of thing that got Ghost kicked off of Reddit. So do that in real life. And if you don't get kicked out of the gun shop, maybe that tells somebody, heck, I didn't know I could support valuable stuff like this. Wow.
Yeah. I want to talk about the 2A patch batch because we've seen in the last weekend a lot of people putting out on Instagram and all of that. They're starting to receive the 2A patch batch. And I got a message from my wife earlier saying that I've got a package at the house. I believe that'd be my patches and all that. So anyone out there, thank you so much for one, supporting the patch batch, but two, thank you again. And I'm going to let G talk about this a little bit also, but thank you for sharing when you guys get it, because I think that helps the exposure of the patch batch. There might be a lot of people that hadn't heard about what G was doing with the different patch batch and the different organizations and creations, but now that you're putting those patches out on Instagram and Facebook, you're exposing other people that might jump on board the next time. So thank you for that, and thanks, G, for all of your hard work. I know that it's been probably a pain in the ass for you the last week or so.
An opportunity to learn. So the fun is just starting. The campaign itself was a catalyst. The patches are a catalyst. Now we get to see what Yuta's already got him on his store, what he's going to be able to do. And now he's got a taste of what the patch game is like. Tony is just getting back from KD's event, so he'll be checking his out and being able to utilize that with his alumni and his things that he's got going on, right? He's got so many oars in the water. Yeah, and you haven't seen yours, Clover. I don't know. Did you get yours yet?
I haven't went and checked.
So, like I say, as everybody gets them and gets to start doing stuff with them, I mean, Night Strike, right? GunStreamer sent me theirs arrived okay. They're happy with them. So, now we get to see what the projects get to do. And obviously we're hopefully going to have opportunities to collaborate. And sure, there's going to be another patch batch, but this patch batch is just the beginning of the real thing. And plus everybody now knows everybody, right? So,
right. That's the coolest thing is yeah, I mean, we knew most everybody, but now, I mean, there's people that when we start doing your 2A, on Tuesdays and Saturdays and all that, is when I met Logan and where I met Tony, Big Tony, and that's kind of just paralleled into the patch batch and all that. But getting to meet other creators and other organizations, people in the 2A community, and collaborating. A lot of us have been talking about collaboration for a year or so, about bringing the community together and collaborating. And it's nice to see that there's a lot of people talking collaboration now, and that's a really good thing, because I think that people are starting to realize that our end game and our ultimate goals need to be bigger than our selfish motivations. And helping this patch batch get out there, like you said, either sell them or you can trade them or whatever. But the patches, and however you want to do that, is your brand for your organization or your project or your channel. And the more your brand can get out there and people become aware of you, then that's really when your message is going to get heard by more people. And the more positive 2A messages that people are hearing, the better. And that's why we stress so much for people to turn their cameras on. We need all the voices we can get, but the patch batch is going to make people aware, maybe just because people sees a patch. They may have never heard of Ghost Tactical or Clover Tac or Every Second Matters or Yuta or whatever, but they see a patch and they say, well, that's kind of a cool patch. I don't even never heard of that. I'm gonna go check them out, see what that's all about. Next thing you know, you brought someone new to the conversation, so it's awesome. Clover, what about you? I know you don't do anything, so I mean, do you have anything to plug?
He's like semi-retired.
Yeah,
he's not semi-retired, full ass retired at this point.
I am retired. Yeah. Oh man, I've been, in between rain and this, that, and the other, trying to, work on some things, and definitely got content to do. Nerd Chat Thursday night. I mean, look for that. And then this week on Firearm Friday is Skip from Skip's Tactical. So that was a good one. Definitely want to catch that.
Yeah, go check out G and go check out Clover. Go check out GunChannels. Before we get out of here,
I got a new service I want to start plugging.
Yeah, go for it. I saw you say that, but go ahead. Yeah, what's that all about?
So I've been watching this chat. I don't always pay attention when you have one of these chats, right? I just show up for the paycheck. But this time I was paying attention to what was going on out there and you guys talking. So sounds like one of your problems is you don't have a laser-like focus in the middle of the night. Something happens in the middle of the night, you're concerned that you don't have like that immediate, awareness.
Right off of the bat, absolutely.
So we'll determine the price later. What we'll do is we'll just set up a PayPal button where you just have access to your PayPal account, and maybe it'll be like $50 or $100 per call. But what I'll do is I'll call or text you in the middle of the night just randomly, and that'll give you.
Hey, that's training right there. Absolutely.
How's that different from what goes on now? I'm just curious.
I won't be asking favors and stuff. You'll just be.
2 o'clock in the morning. What's the difference? You know.
he doesn't realize sometimes he's like 3 hours behind us.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it's only 11 o'clock here. Yeah, bro, it's 1 o'clock here, man.
But this time I'm not asking a favor, and instead you're paying me. So I like.
Oh, so I'm paying you to wake my ass up in the middle, and I like the concept though. I'm not against the concept. You might not like my wife's answering the phone, but that's okay.
Oh, see, that's another aspect because now you get to deal with the wife and how like, no, this was a training opportunity, honey.
Yeah. Oh hell. Oh my
God. Let's run out. Let's quickly run out like if it was on fire.
Sure. Yeah.
And I could randomly like say burglar or like rapist or like fire. Fire.
Yes, absolutely. Excuse me. I do want to kind of hold on. Bless.
We had a thing going who's going to kill Bob, but now we could figure out who's going to kill Ghost first.
That's right.
Can you kill a ghost though?
Can't do it, man. Can't die.
You can bust one.
Can't die.
That's true.
I want to bring it back to a serious note real quick. I was very proud to see a lot of social media stuff this weekend about. I was on a campaign starting Thursday night to make sure and stress, to me, not trying to preach anybody, but to me, why Memorial Day is precious and it's an honorable thing. And it was really awesome to see a lot of people on Facebook and Instagram and even on YouTube talking about what Memorial Day means to them and getting away from Veterans Day and Armed Forces Day and all of that. It was about the people that never came home. Remember, guys, on June 6th, we're talking a week away, is the 75th anniversary of D-Day. And you're talking about people that never reached sand. They never reached the beach in Normandy. Omaha Beach was the game changer in the world. It wasn't just World War II, but it changed how wars were fought. It changed the outcome of the Normandy invasion, changed the world as we know it, because that's what changed the tide in World War II. 75 years is coming up on June 6th. So people don't think about history and all that. I'm a big World War II guy, but those guys, you know, I was talking with someone there. They said that the casualty rate at Normandy was over 100% because casualties include injuries. And what was happening is people were getting off, getting shot, getting pulled back, getting treated, getting bandaged up, sent out again, getting shot again. So one person has multiple casualties. The casualty rate was well over 100% at D-Day in Normandy and Omaha Beach. And you're talking about people that they call them the greatest generation for a reason. My grandfather was in Germany and under Patton in World War II. We all know someone that was in World War II, whether they came back or not. D-Day was a large part of what America is now. So we had Memorial Day. So please, 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 let's remember the 75th anniversary of D-Day next week. So I'm sorry, that's kind of a weird thing, but that's just something that I like getting that war history out. Secondly, there are some friends of ours in some places that are being absolutely terrorized by weather. I complain a lot about it raining here. We've had tornadoes around, but we have friends in our community that are in Missouri, Oklahoma, Ohio, Indiana, that flooding and tornadoes are very, very real over this past weekend. Fort Smith, Arkansas is 3 hours away from me, but it's also the home of Walther Firearms. The river has broken through one of the dams, and Fort Smith, Arkansas is about to be underwater if something doesn't happen dramatically. Go Google Fort Smith, Arkansas flooding, and it's unbelievable. I have family. I have my aunt and uncle live in Fort Smith. You know, Walther Arms is there, but if you know some people that are in the eastern Oklahoma, like Snobs and Tulsa, eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas, the Arkansas River is bad right now. So we're keeping you guys in our thoughts and our prayers. People in Missouri and Oklahoma and Texas and Indiana, Ohio, that have just been thrashed in the last week or so with tornadoes. You know, if there's anything that any of us can ever do besides saying we're thinking about you, if you need water, you need, you know, toilet paper, you need food, whatever. We're only seriously, we're only Louisiana, as Andrew says, Louisiana is bad too. We're only maybe a phone call away. So you know, we might not be able to be there physically to help you, but I know a lot of us can get and move an army to get some goods sent your way. So please, if you or your loved ones or family have been affected by this weather in the last week, please let some of us know. We might be able to help out somehow, some way. So on that note, we're going to get out of here and say thank you. We love you guys. Thank you to the patrons. Thank you to anyone and everyone that watches, listens, views, supports the channel anyway. We love you very much here, and we're looking forward to some things. We got my dad moved into a nursing home. So he is out of the rehab. He's in a nursing home now. He's probably never coming home, but he's going to be at assisted living. And so that has helped. It's only about 5 minutes from the house. So that's relieved a little bit of the stress in my life. So things are going to be able to start happening a little bit more instead of having to drive an hour each direction to see my dad all the time. Anyways, $5 super chat from Rick. Rick Nethery's Firearm Channel. Rick's a good friend, very good supporter of a lot of people. This is prayers to those in harm's way, brother. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, super chats. We'll probably do super chats for a while. We'll all go to some kind of fun. If you guys need anything, let me know, and we'll be able to send some money here in a little bit and to help out any way we can and all that. So thank you guys. Stay safe out there. We love you, and we'll see you next week. We got some cool stuff coming up the next week as well. So thank you again. Thank you for Clover and G for showing up, and again, stay safe out there.